When I asked my in-laws if they could watch my daughter so I could attend a job interview, my mother-in-law snorted, "You can't even keep a husband, and you want a career now?" My father-in-law added, "You should be grateful we even let you live here, barely." That night, I didn't argue. I just took a folder from my closet I'd been building for 3 years. This morning, the police knocked on their door first. I never planned to end up in that house. When I married Ryan, I thought I was finally safe. We weren't rich, but we had enough. I stayed home with our baby, and he worked in tech support. He wasn't affectionate, but I told myself he was tired. I ignored the way he looked past me at parties, how he never introduced me as his wife, just "This is Maya." I ignored a lot, if I'm honest. When Ellie was 2, Ryan told me he was leaving. He didn't even sit down. Just came home one day and said he was done. Said I wasn't what he needed anymore. Said he'd been unhappy for a while. Like it was weather. Like it just happened. He moved out 2 days later. I found out from a friend that he was seeing someone from work. She was younger, didn't have kids, had a real job. He made it sound like it was mutual when he told his family. It wasn't. I begged. I cried. He still left. I had nothing. No job, no savings, no apartment. My own family wasn't in the picture. I hadn't spoken to my mother in years, and my dad was long gone before I turned 18. I called Ruth, Ryan's mom, and asked if I could stay just until I figured things out. She paused for a long time on the phone. Then she said, "I guess. For Ellie's sake." That was the start of 3 years of slow, quiet hell. They gave me the guest room upstairs. It was small, had no door lock, and the ceiling leaked when it rained. I was grateful at first. I didn't want to be ungrateful. That's what Ruth kept saying. You should be grateful. At first it was things like her rearranging my drawers. George walking in without knocking. Her folding my clothes while I was gone and muttering, "You have no taste." They were always watching me. I couldn't make tea without someone asking how many tea bags I used. Ellie was a toddler. I kept her close. She was all I had. Ruth started making comments in front of Ellie. "Mommy's lazy, huh? Mommy doesn't even have a job. Mommy cries at night. She doesn't think we hear." Ellie would look up at me, confused. I'd smile and say let's go play, but I was dying inside. I stopped crying. They didn't deserve to hear me cry. I got a part-time job at a pharmacy. Minimum wage, late shifts, weekends only. Ruth said, "Well, it's something." George said nothing. When I brought home a paycheck and offered money for rent, they refused it. But then Ruth would say, "Don't forget who's feeding you." So I stopped offering. I cleaned their house. I did their dishes. I picked up groceries and cooked meals. They never thanked me. Sometimes Ruth would eat something I made and then spit it into a napkin dramatically. George would say things like, "No wonder Ryan left. You can't even make pasta right." It didn't happen all at once. But over time I started keeping notes. The folder started the night I saw an Amazon order under my name for something I didn't buy. I thought it was a mistake. I checked again. It was an espresso machine. Ruth told me she used my name because hers had too many failed payments. I didn't argue. But that night, I printed the receipt and added it to a manila folder. Just labeled it Keep. Then it was credit card applications. I got declined for a Target card I never applied for. I pulled my credit report. Someone had opened 2 new accounts in my name, one maxed out, one with a missed payment. I knew it was them. I knew it in my gut. So I kept watching. I started taking photos of opened mail. Statements. Charges. I downloaded banking records, statements, anything I could find. George once threw out an entire stack of papers. I pulled them from the trash and found a business filing with my name on it. I'd never seen it before. I added that to the folder too. That folder grew slowly. Over 3 years. I kept it buried under Ellie's old baby clothes in the back of the closet. Every time they insulted me, every time I came home to a new charge on my account, every time I overheard Ruth talking to Ryan on the phone and saying she's still here, yeah, like a barnacle, I added something new. I started taking free online courses at night. Stuff about bookkeeping, credit fraud, small claims court. I didn't understand everything, but I learned enough. I knew what documents I'd need if I ever went to the police. I started keeping backups. One USB in my car, one with a friend from church. Then last week, I got an email from a company I'd applied to 6 months ago. They were offering me a remote interview. The job was real, full-time, benefits, decent pay. I could finally move out if I got it. I just needed someone to watch Ellie for 2 hours. I asked Ruth, standing by the kitchen table. She looked at me like I'd just asked for her kidney. You? A career? You can't even keep a husband. George didn't even glance up. He just said, be grateful we even let you live here, barely. I stared at them. Something in me just shifted. I didn't respond. I nodded, went back upstairs, and shut the door. Ellie was napping. I sat down beside her and pulled out the folder. It was heavy now. Years of proof. Bank statements, screenshots, letters, business filings, my credit reports, emails, audio recordings. Everything tied together. I didn't sleep much that night. I just read and reread everything, cross-checking dates, highlighting key moments, making a timeline. I emailed the file to myself, to 2 friends, and to a legal aid clinic I'd been in contact with for months under a false name. I canceled the interview. That morning, I packed Ellie's bag, made her breakfast, and left before Ruth and George woke up. We went to stay with a friend from church, Leanne, who had once told me, quietly, if you ever need to leave, I have a guest room. She didn't ask questions when I showed up. She just handed me a coffee and let Ellie play with her dog. At 7:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from a blocked number. I'd given someone in the fraud unit permission to update me. The message was short, it's happening. They're at the house now. I just stared at the screen. Leanne came and sat next to me, put her hand on my shoulder, and didn't say a word. It's not over. They'll fight back. I know that. But for the first time in years, I'm not scared. I'm ready. For the first few days after the police showed up at Ruth and George's house, everything was quiet. Too quiet. I kept waiting for a phone call or some kind of fallout. But there was nothing. Then on the 5th day, it started. I got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was Ryan. Maya, what the hell did you do? My parents are being investigated. I just got subpoenaed. This is your fault. You're going to regret this. I didn't call him back. I saved the voicemail and added it to the file. Later that night, Leanne got a call from a restricted number. A man asked if that girl with the kid was staying with her. Leanne hung up. The next morning, someone egged her front porch. She didn't kick me out. She just said, guess I should have expected it. But I could tell she was worried. I offered to leave. She told me no, but we started keeping the doors locked, even during the day. Ellie sensed the tension. She kept asking if we were going home, and I didn't know how to answer her. I just kept saying, we're safe here, over and over, like a prayer. The police followed up with me twice. The investigator asked if I knew about a second bank account under my name. I didn't. Turns out, George had opened one using my info and had it tied to a small landscaping business that didn't exist. When I told them I'd never seen a dime from it, the agent nodded and just said, that's what we needed to know. They weren't just doing fraud under my name. They were laundering money. What really got me was when the police asked about Ellie's social security number. I froze. Apparently, a new account had been opened under her name too. A line of credit. Ellie is 5. I felt like throwing up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling while Ellie snored next to me on the air mattress. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ruth's smug face. I remembered how she once said, that girl is going to grow up just like you, broken and desperate. They didn't just insult me. They tried to trap me. Ruin me. And now they were dragging my daughter into it. The worst part? Ryan showed up at my work. I had picked up an extra shift at the pharmacy. He came in during my break, like it was nothing. He just leaned against the wall near the back exit and said, "This isn't going to end the way you think." I didn't speak. I pulled out my phone and filmed him. He saw it, laughed, and walked away. Later that week, my debit card stopped working. I checked my account, it had been drained. I called the bank. They told me there had been a withdrawal at a branch 30 miles away. I had never been there in my life. The bank rep flagged it, froze the account, and said they'd look into it. I had $42 to my name at that point. And Ellie had a cold. I cried in the Walgreens parking lot. Leanne's cousin worked at the local news station. She'd heard about an elder couple under investigation for financial crimes involving their ex-daughter-in-law. She didn't know it was me. Not yet. The legal aid clinic called me with updates. Ruth and George were being audited, and Ryan was being brought in for questioning. They had found more shell companies, more accounts, and more victims. Apparently, I wasn't the only one. There was a woman in North Carolina, Ryan's ex from before me, who had filed a complaint years ago. It went nowhere. But now her story matched mine. Same patterns. Same methods. They were serial fraudsters. They just used family to cover their tracks. It wasn't just about me anymore. And then came the letter. Delivered by hand. A man in a suit knocked on Leanne's door at 8 a.m. and asked for me by name. I came out, still half asleep, and he handed me an envelope. He said, "You've been served." Inside was a lawsuit. Defamation. Harassment. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Filed by Ruth and George. They were suing me. I laughed. It came out of me like a bark. I actually laughed. But my hands were shaking when I called the clinic. The lawyer there told me not to panic, it was likely a desperate move. Still, I felt sick for days. Then I got another voicemail. This one from Ryan's new girlfriend. She called me names. Said I was jealous. Said I was destroying his life. Said I was obsessed with playing victim. I saved that one, too. It's strange. For years, I was scared of being alone. I stayed quiet, I kept my head down, because I thought I needed them. But now, every time they try to scare me, I get clearer. Stronger. This is war. But not the kind they understand. I don't need to yell or threaten. I just keep collecting. They never thought I'd fight back. They never thought I could. They were wrong. And I'm not done. ChatGPT said. About 2 weeks after I was served, I got a call from the legal aid clinic. They told me the state had opened a broader investigation into Ruth and George, not just for what they did to me, but others, too. Apparently, they had claimed government benefits for a fake dependent for years. A boy named Cameron, supposedly Ruth's disabled nephew. Only Cameron didn't exist. That's when it hit me. All those times Ruth mentioned helping family and not having enough because of our responsibilities, it was a cover. They'd been collecting checks under fake names for years. My case wasn't their first. Just the first one that stuck. But the real twist came a few days later, when a stranger showed up at the pharmacy. She was older, maybe late 50s. Looked tired, nervous. She asked if I was Maya. I hesitated, but nodded. She said, quietly, "My name's Lydia. I used to be married to George. Before Ruth." I just stared at her. I didn't know what to say. She went on, voice shaking. "They did it to me, too." She told me she had met George when she was young and broke. He swept her up fast, promised to take care of her. Same pattern. Within a year, she was isolated from her family, didn't have her own bank account, had loans in her name she didn't remember signing. When she tried to leave, Ruth, who was already just a close friend at the time, Helped George file false reports that she was mentally unstable. Lydia lost custody of her son. She had been trying for years to get her records cleared. She said she saw my story mentioned online. Just the initials. But she knew it was Ruth and George. They always slip up, she said. We talked for almost an hour, behind the pharmacy, on milk crates. She cried twice. So did I. After she left, I called the legal aid clinic and told them everything. They contacted her the next day. Now she's part of the case, too. Then the next twist came fast and hit hard. One morning, Ellie's daycare called. They said someone came by asking to pick her up early. A man. Said he was her uncle. Ellie doesn't have an uncle. They didn't let her go, thank God. The staff had my list, and they followed it exactly. But the man left before they could get a name. No camera caught his face. He parked around the corner. I filed a police report that afternoon. After that, I pulled Ellie out of daycare completely. I couldn't sleep for days. I kept checking the locks. Kept a baseball bat by the bed. Leanne started leaving the porch lights on all night. Her husband installed a doorbell camera. He didn't say much, just nodded and told me to stay sharp. Then came the next crack in their walls. Ruth's cousin, someone I'd only met twice at family cookouts, messaged me on Facebook. I almost ignored it. But something told me to read it. She wrote. I know what they've done to you. They did the same to my mom. She was Ruth's sister. She died 2 years ago. We couldn't prove anything. But I still have some of her files. Call me if you want them. I did. She lived 2 hours away. I drove there the next weekend, just me and Ellie, while Leanne watched her for an hour so I could talk in private. Her name was Carla. She looked just like Ruth, same sharp cheekbones, same dark eyes, but softer. Sadder. She handed me a dusty file box. I don't know if it's useful, she said, but if you're building something, maybe it'll help. Inside were papers, old ones. Check stubs, suspicious transfers, letters Ruth had written to agencies pretending to be her sister. Even an old journal with entries that described how Ruth and George used her for loans she didn't understand. She wrote that they threatened to have her committed if she told anyone. That journal broke me. Not just because of what it said, but because it sounded just like the way I'd felt. Trapped. Silenced. Made to feel crazy. I added it to the growing case file. When I told the investigator about it, she said, this just opened new doors. They're building a pattern now, years of abuse, fraud, coercion. Not just to me. To anyone close enough to trust them. And Ryan? He stopped showing up. For a while. Until I got a letter from his lawyer. He's filing for full custody of Ellie. The letter says I'm unstable. That I've dragged his family into legal issues out of spite. That I've been hiding Ellie and moving her around too much. He's trying to take her from me. He doesn't even want her. I know that. He never asked about her once in 3 years. But if he can use her to hurt me, he will. I'm scared. But I'm not backing down. Because this isn't just about revenge anymore. This is survival. And I'm not the only one they hurt. I just might be the only one who ever fought back. The custody hearing was set for early December. It snowed that morning. I dressed Ellie in her best coat and boots. She had no idea what was really happening. I told her we were just going to talk to some people about our life. She held my hand the whole time. Leanne came too, sat in the back of the courtroom. Ryan showed up with a new suit and that same smug look I remembered from the day he left. His lawyer was sharp, aggressive. He called me unstable 5 times in the first 10 minutes. They tried to paint me as bitter. As someone trying to destroy a family out of revenge. They showed photos from my Facebook, tried to say I moved Ellie around too much, made her nomadic. I sat still. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. Because then it was my turn. My lawyer stood and walked the judge through the folder. Not all of it, just enough. Enough to show fraud. The fake accounts. The loans. The IRS letters. The credit in Ellie's name. The daycare incident. The journal from Ruth's sister. The judge's expression changed after that. Then came the final blow. The investigator from the state, the one who had followed my case for months, had agreed to testify. She walked up, sat down, and calmly stated that Ruth and George were now facing 6 federal charges. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Tax evasion. Conspiracy. The courtroom went silent when she said Ellie's name had been used to open a business credit card in Florida. A card with over $8,000 on it. Used to pay for furniture and a cruise. The judge looked at Ryan. He asked one question. "Did you know about any of this?" Ryan stammered. Said no. Said he had nothing to do with it. But then the judge asked why Ryan had continued to forward his mail to his parents' house. Why some of his tax returns used the same fake business. Ryan froze. His lawyer whispered something, but it was too late. It didn't matter what else he said after that. The judge dismissed the custody request on the spot. Full legal custody was awarded to me. Permanently. Ryan was ordered to pay back support. Over $30,000. He argued, said he couldn't afford it. The judge told him he should have thought of that before getting involved in a criminal family operation. I didn't even smile. I just held Ellie and closed my eyes. Ruth and George were arrested 1 week later at their house. I saw a photo online, Ruth with her hands cuffed behind her back, George trying to block the camera. The local paper ran the headline, "Elder couple accused of decades-long fraud scheme, family speaks out." They're being prosecuted in federal court now. No deals. The investigators found 5 more victims. People they had used, discarded, left behind. Some had lost homes. One man lost custody of his daughter, just like I almost did. Ruth's trial was the worst. She cried in court. Wore a soft pink sweater. Pretended to be confused. But the evidence was too much. Old letters. Bank records. Voice messages. Carla testified. So did Lydia. And me. I looked her in the eye when I spoke. I told the court everything she ever said about me. About Ellie. How she used my name, my credit, my silence. She looked down the whole time. George didn't say a word during his trial. Not once. They were both sentenced to 6 years in prison. Each. No parole for at least 4. They lost their house to legal fees and asset seizure. The state took the furniture. The cruise line sued them for fraud. Ryan? He tried to disappear. He moved 3 cities over, changed jobs. But the garnishments followed him. His new girlfriend left. I heard he moved into a 1-bedroom with 2 roommates. He has to report his earnings every month to avoid jail. He sent me a message a few months ago. Hope you're happy now. I didn't reply. I just saved it. Because yes. I am. I didn't get rich. I didn't become famous. But I got free. I work from home now. The company that interviewed me back then hired me once they heard the whole story. I'm good at what I do. I earn enough to give Ellie a quiet, safe life. We live in a small apartment with soft rugs and warm light. It's not much, but it's ours. Leanne still checks in every week. She comes by on Sundays. Brings muffins. We're family now. Sometimes I still wake up afraid. But then I see Ellie sleeping, her little fingers curled around her stuffed rabbit, and I remember, it's over. I was never crazy. I wasn't broken. I was just buried. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd stay quiet forever. But I outlived them. And I have the proof.